Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I am Senior Chief Petty Officer Timothy Francis, and it's my distinct honor and privilege to act as the Master of Ceremonies today. I'm wearing my uniform because in honor of my uncle, Frederick Allen Stearns, whose name is on the plaque. That's how I got pulled into this. I had no idea this plaque existed, or even that Camp Takodah existed. But Graham found me about 8 months ago, and this has all rolled out from our work since then. So I just wanted to say that since my uncle was a Takodian, like most of you. But before we begin, I want to say a few things, administrative things. First, apologies for the delay. As Bill would say, we probably missed our time, a few minutes late, but maybe he doesn't like that. Say la vie. So first, feel free to take pictures anytime. Graham's recording the event, so that will also be shared with everybody. Second, if you could mute your cell phones so they don't interrupt the ceremonial parts of the ceremony. Most of it's going to be informal, but there are a few more formal parts. Third, obviously, you all know the camp is going on in the background, so we'll just work our way through if there's any foreigners or whatever blasting. And fourth, while this is not a military ceremony per se, we do have service members from the New Hampshire National Guard here to support the ceremony. So I'd like everybody to give them a hand for their service and their participation. With that, please welcome Graham Noseworthy, Vice President of the Takodah YMCA, father of 2 Takodians, and lead historian for this project.
It's a big moment. I want to share a song. I'm not going to sing, don't worry. That was sung here at camp starting in the early 1920s. It was actually written by Elgin A. Jones in 1925. Elgin Jones is one of the most elder Takodians, and he is the man that named Camp Takodah. He had gone on a trip and spent time with the Sioux natives in South Dakota, North Dakota, South, we'll go with South. I should know this. And when he came back, he was so moved by his experience with them and that they were friendly to all, that he shifted the letters a little bit, and we became Takodah. Before that, we were Camp Primitive. Takodah's way better. And he wrote this song, and it had faded by the time I was a camper here starting in 1982, and we don't sing it anymore. But to me, when I found it in the records, and this is an example of one of the pages of Uncle Oscar's records. So in 1971, it was time for Uncle Oscar to transition out. So we distracted him for a year by asking him to write down the entire history of Camp Takodah. And he went through every page, every binder, everything we have, and wrote out a very, very, very detailed history. So in the stories about your relatives, you've seen there's a lot of information about camp comes from these pages. And comes from some of the books that I'll show you afterwards. But I found this, and I just thought it was perfect. From the friendships that we make in our camp on Takodah Lake, from the aid our friends provide, thrives Takodah, our great pride. Zoe Mo Sas Agapo. Hence this song that all may know, Zoe Mo Sas Agapo. Camp Takodah went away, you will come in, thought, and stay, bringing memories of the past, such as shall forever last. Will we e'er forget thee? No. Zoe Mo Sas Agapo. Will we e'er forget thee? No. Zoe Mo Sas Agapo. And what Zoe Mo Sas Agapo means, and this is why I felt that this was incredibly relevant to the discoveries that Tim and I have made, is it means my life, my soul, I love you. And as we've worked our way through this project, it was abundantly clear. These were all bright boys. These were all incredibly talented, hardworking individuals. They all did extraordinary things, and they all loved their lives. In their letters home, in the services that they chose, in the ways in which they chose to serve, some of them staying longer than asked, some of them doing more than asked, all of them making the supreme sacrifice. These 12 men loved their lives. They loved this place, and they loved what they brought to their country. And it has been a tremendous honor to have gone through this process to find you and find them and learn a little bit about myself in this place in the process. So I can't tell you how much it means to have you here. We had originally thought about doing this on Memorial Day. But we chose to do it now, as I discussed with some of you, because we wanted you to hear the sounds of camp. We wanted you to hear what it was like when they were here. We want you to feel the place that they grew to love. And after our ceremony today, you will have an opportunity to go into buildings that they were in. Not this one. Obviously, this one was built after to honor them. But you will go into buildings that they were in. They're all still here. You'll hear songs sung that they sang. You will see a meal procedure that is identical to what they experienced. And you'll see some other special things that we have in store. So thank you for being here. It is an honor to meet you. I am barely holding it together emotionally. And I will now turn it back over to Tim.
Thank you. If I could have you all please rise for the presentation of the colors and the invitation. Fourth, arms. Colors, right turn, march. Colors, left turn, march. Present, arms. Port, arms. Colors, about, face. Colors, right turn, march.
Invite those who desire to do so to now join me in prayer. Our God in heaven, you're a refuge to the weary and a strong fortress to the downtrodden. In times of trouble, you're there, and your presence is comfort to all who call on your name. In different times, in different ways, we all know what it is to experience challenges. Some will shake the very fabric of our world, but none know this reality more than the warrior in the heart of battle. We're gathered this day in this place to remember the heritage passed down to us by 12 brave young men who paid the ultimate price for the freedoms we enjoy today. Those service members who left behind the carefree innocence of youth and waded into the harsh reality of war. They pass on to us all a tradition of honor, courage, love of country, and of faith. It's important that we be reminded of these things, and so we ask your blessing on this ceremony in this memorial lodge dedicated in their honor. May this place serve to all who pass through as a symbol of the cost of freedom and an encouragement to carry forward this proud heritage. As warriors of the past have called out to you in their time of trouble, in our present day, through the real challenges we face, we call out to you as well and ask that you would help us all to remember the bravery of those who have gone before, even to the point of death. And in remembering that we would find bravery within ourselves whenever duty calls. Bless this ceremony, we pray, in your holy name.
Please be seated. Thank you, Captain Molina. Also, let's give a hand to the flag detail. As Graham said before, there's been a flag detail at Camp Takodah for 100 years. So, the ghosts of the past will recognize that. I'd like to take a moment to say a few words that I was thinking about my uncle and the other 11 Takodians who gave their lives in war, and the decisions that they made that had such dramatic effect on their brief lives. In the all-volunteer military of today, we sign our names when we enlist, voluntarily, obviously. There's no conscription. And we know that we could be asked to put ourselves at risk and perhaps give our life to the country, for our country. And many of us have deployed overseas to Iraq and Afghanistan and elsewhere. We've faced the perils of the sea, as Bill and I like to say, and the National Guard on the ground, and airmen in the air, everybody. And it is actually precisely in those times, in the baking heat or the chilling cold, with the sand or the salt water tickling the back of your throat, that you most understand your oath of enlistment. It's not in the sunny days here. It's in those hard times when you're deployed. And that, as a historian, it was in those moments, in the middle of the night somewhere in Iraq, or on a ship in the middle of the ocean, that I would feel part of the great chain of past soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines who come before us. Going all the way back to the country's creation, to even the army of George Washington when he stopped at the house out at the front gate. And when I think about it, I realize that we stand on the shoulders of those who've gone before us. We stand on the shoulders of those who passed the torch to us, just as we pass the torch to those who will follow us. We stand on the shoulders of these 12 men who stood the watch before us and gave their lives so that we might live in a better world. Shipmates, your watch stands relieved. Relieved by those who followed the trail you blazed with your sacrifice. You stand relieved. We have the watch. I'd like to invite Graham up for the presentation of the MIA table and the reading of the names.
While they're moving that out, I know this is moving very quickly, so afterwards I'll make sure we get a chance to move a little slower. So we've tried, as you heard me saying earlier, about the buildings that the boys have been in and hearing and experiencing the things that they got to have when they were here. We tried to extend that a little further. Now, Tim is going to explain the MIA table and what the significance of all these pieces are, but what I want you to know is that Uncle Jeff Craig, who was the camping services director when I was a little boy, I reached out to him last week and I explained what we were doing. And I asked him if he knew where we could get a set of the original china that had been issued at camp. And he has a set. And so he bundled it up in about 17,000 layers of bubble wrap, and a box, and a car, and holding it, and brought it here. And this is it. And so this china, which you can see has our original logo, and this silverware, which is stamped with the CT of Camp Takodah, the triangle with a C and a T in it, may have been used by those boys. The table that is under this tablecloth is used in all of our candlelight ceremonies, may also have been used by those boys. Now we can't be sure, but what we do know is that for a long, long time, Camp Takodah didn't get rid of anything. And it was all here. And so we still have these pieces. These are some of the last remaining sets. We still have some of these. So they are being used by them today. And then this cup is currently in service in our dining hall and has been used by some of those boys that are out there right now. So Tim is going to explain the significance of the table, but I wanted you to understand the history of the pieces.
And we also, that's lake water in glass. So, in the Navy we have a ceremony called the two-bell ceremony, which is to honor missing and fallen shipmates. On this table sits a red rose to signify the blood our fallen shipmates shed. A mug of water to quench their thirst for freedom. Salt to remind us of the pain they feel, lest we forget them. Lemon to remind us of the bitter tears shed by their families. The china is bone white, as is the purity of their sacrifice. The cloth is white, as were their burial shrouds. We take this time to remember them, to hold them in our hearts, our thoughts, and our prayers. In days past, two bells mark the end of the routine day aboard a ship, the most appropriate time to honor our departed shipmates. Ladies and gentlemen, would you please bow your heads? The toll of the ship's bell reminds us of the reverence we owe to our departed shipmates. To those who guard the honor of our country upon the sea, in the air, and on foreign soil. Let it be a reminder of the faith they confide in us. Let us who gather here not forget our obligations in silence, breathe a prayer for our absent shipmates. This moment of reverence we dedicate to the memory of our shipmates who have gone before us.
We will now read the names of the 12 Takodians who gave their lives during the war. They will be read in the order in which they served and made the supreme sacrifice. Good timing.
Staff Sergeant Lawrence Alfred Robinson, United States Army Air Forces, died 22 September 1942.
Pharmacist mate, second class, Gail Philip Newell, United States Navy, died 13 November 1942.
Lieutenant Junior Grade Raymond Miley Krebs, Jr., United States Navy, died 15 November 1942.
Quartermaster third class, Philip Douglas Parody, United States Navy, died 3 September 1943.
Lieutenant Leonard Abbott Spike Merrill, Jr., United States Army, died 26 January 1944.
Private first class, Robert Douglas Lancy, United States Army, died 28 January 1944.
Private First Class Chester Lyman Beanie Kingsbury, Jr., United States Army, died 11 November 1944.
Second Lieutenant William Thomas Billy Burroughs, Jr., United States Army Air Forces, died 24 December 1944.
Staff Sergeant Robert Henry Slade, United States Army, died 22 April 1945.
Radio Man third class, George Frederick Toomey, United States Navy, died 24 July 1945.
Corporal Frederick Allen Stearns, United States Army Air Forces, 15 August 1945.
Pharmacist mate, second class, Thomas Aaron Eaton, United States Navy, died 11 May 1946. Sure. We wanted to give an opportunity to the family members. If anybody wanted to say anything, please don't feel obligated, but we wanted to give that opportunity if anybody would care to do so.
At this time, I'd like to invite Chief William E. Parkman, United States Navy retired, and President of the Takodah YMCA, and Artie Lang, Executive Director, to come up front and say a few words.
I just want to say thank you. This has been a wonderful, very emotional journey that we've been on this past year. Big kudos to Graham, but more importantly, to the families. I hope during this ceremony that you've taken the time and heard the boys in the background and reflected on these fine young men that probably started right here laughing and joking and here in the woods and the lakes of Camp Takodah. And it's with that that took them and carried them on to perform greater service for our nation. As Tim alluded to earlier, I have been deployed to Afghanistan and Iraq, and both times while I was there over Christmas, there's a tradition here with the candlelight and all that, and I always had my candle with me and lit it on Christmas Eve in those foreign countries. So I'm assuming and hoping that your family members might have done the same thing and reflected back at their wonderful times here at Camp Takodah. I noticed on here, Staff Sergeant Slade, we kind of share a common bond. I noticed that he was part of the old Ironsides unit of the Army. Well, I don't go as far back, but I too was stationed on the USS Constitution, Old Ironsides, back in 2009. So a nice little connection there, plus our Navy connection with my shipmates there. So with that, fair winds and following seas, as we like to say in the Navy, and I'm going to pass it over to our CEO, Arlen.
Thank you all for coming, and I want to thank Tim and Graham for all of their hard work. I don't think anybody really expected, least of all Graham, when he pulled on this little thread, that this would be what this turned into.
Could we have a brief round of applause for Graham? Thank you to their families who put up with all of this.
And it's that passion and it's that dedication that Graham shows for Takodah that I hope, as Bill said, when you hear the kids and you hear the laughter, and hopefully you'll all be joining us for lunch, and when you hear the singing, to know that it's been the same. So much has changed, but so much has been the same since 1916. And to see these young men, and for these young men to get to see you all at lunch, and to know that they're part of something greater, that they are part of a history, and that they are part of a community, to me is what this is all about, and is so important. So again, thank you all for coming, and enjoy the rest of your day at camp.
We're about to end the ceremony, but a few more steps. But before that, I'd like to say that when they dedicated the building and the plaque in 1946, they played taps over the lake, possibly on the port right here. And so we're going to do that to end the ceremony. If you could all please rise for the benediction. The playing of taps, playing of the church, and the retrieval of the color.
Please join me in prayer. Our holy God, we thank you for this day and for the reminder of those who've gone before, for the sacrifice and courage. Help us in our day to carry forward the bright torch handed to us and add to its flame by our own service, molded by the heritage which we've been reminded of this day. We ask now that you cause us to depart with your blessing, and your grace, mercy, and peace would rule in our hearts. Bless this nation we serve, and us as we serve it, in the holy name we pray.
Colors. Right turn, march. Colors. Right turn, march.
ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our ceremony. Thank you all for attending.